try and describe this here to the camera. What we have going on here is we have the LCD on this controller. You have a couple wires hacked into the backlight, which leads to the original contrast pot of the Game Boy, which will now control the backlight brightness. Obviously, we have power and composite in. Clipped off wire there. Power and composite in, which is coming from the Raspberry Pi, which is buried back here. And power switch, which is, for right now, it's a little push button thing. It's been stolen off the controller for the battery. This is the booster and charge controller for the battery. It's a 3.7 volt, 3600 milliamp hour. This is the original volume control from the Game Boy. It is controlling the volume to the speaker, which is not the original speaker. This is a 1-watt speaker, which is being driven by a PAM 3806, if I'm right, amplifier, which runs off of 5 volts. It's extremely efficient. Draws like 26 milliamps. Drives the speaker to plenty volume. I'm using only on one side. It's mono only. So I'm using one side of the amplifier. Using the original headphone and power jack from the Game Boy. And the headphone jack right now is just putting a line out, which is plenty enough for most headphones to actually play. It's not blasting levels, but you can hear it just fine. And the power in is hooked up to the charging here of the charge controller for the battery. Now we have a USB, which is hooked up to the Raspberry Pi. And all the controls, is using the original controls from the original board, hacked it up to fit in here. Wired to common ground for all the buttons and D-pad, and they are hooked directly to the GPIO. There is no other interface board running software on the Raspberry Pi that inputs from the GPIO for the joystick controls. And I think that's about it. Got the power from the battery going to the boost. It splits off here to the screen and to the Raspberry Pi. Most of the things are tapped off of somewhere on the Raspberry Pi for power like this, amplifier and whatnot. And the whole idea was to try and keep it as stock looking as possible, so using all the original controls, filling up all the original holes. The only thing that's not going to original right now is the power button. I may do something with that. It's a push button power button to control this controller, but I'm sure I could hack the original slider for the Game Boy onto the push button here, so instead of sliding, it just pushes in and out. That'd be the last thing I would do. Otherwise, it's pretty much complete. The wiring is kind of a rat's nest, but there's only so much room we have, and I'm just trying to cram it in where I can. I use this really thin wire. Works out nice. Doesn't take up any space. Gotta use a little bit thicker wire for power, obviously. And that's about it. And I'll show it to you complete. Here it is running. Yeah, the volume control on the side here. Yeah, it's a little touchy. It's probably not the right logarithmic, but it works just fine. Oh, so I can do this one-handed. There's also a built-in volume. I'll select here, up and down on the D-pad, go down select, and the brightness control on the side here. So you control the brightness just fine. I'm not going to play it one-handed, so you get the point. You see all the buttons work. Pause. Select. You also have save state. Save the state and load from it. He's loading on the same point. So save states work. Like I said, the volume up and down, save is right and left. Exit to the emulator. Back to Retropie. Which is strangely, if you can hear it, it's very hissy. I don't understand why the sound is so hissy. If it's something to do with the Raspberry Pi, I know they had problems with it, had a lot of noise in it. Let's go to some Super Nintendo. I don't have much loaded on here at the moment. Let's try some Space Megaforce. Now I'm waiting for a new screen cover. This one you can see it's all scratched and scuffed and everything. And at that point I'll probably try and do something with this foam. I'll have to set that in the setting to get it to max all the time. That way it controls the air better. Other options here. Oh, there we go. Controller test. Up, down, left, right. All your angles, select, start, or A and B. Select, start. Right click just does it on here, I don't know. Fortunately, I don't have a left or right button. It's talking about the trigger buttons. Yeah, this is a Super Nintendo, so some Super Nintendo games, honestly, are not going to be completely playable. But I was going more for everything with a 2-button control. I might, sometime in the future, add 2 extra buttons here. Trigger buttons, oh, that'd be quite a pain. You'd have to add them somewhere on the side here or something. Or if you're holding it, you can kind of, hit it like this on the side or something. But you can see it looks pretty much 100% stock. I got this covering up the Raspberry Pi now, the Game Boy cartridge. Battery cover is sealed. I only have one screw in it at the moment, just all together. And you can see USB on the side, that fits in there nice. And that's basically, there's no screw there. And contrast, like I said, controls the brightness, and volume controls volume. So if you didn't know any better, it looks pretty much stock. The only thing that gives it away is obviously the screen and the power button. There you go. If you have any questions or anything, you can send me a message. I'll try and get back to you as soon as I can. Just let me know. And I have no idea if I ever plan on selling this or not. Right now, all the work I put into it, it's a keeper at the moment. So other than that, it's probably one of the more completely reusing ones I've seen online. They used all the original controls and everything for everything in as best as possible. Definitely a tight fit, so I ended up with the Raspberry A Plus, which is okay, but it's a little underpowered for some games. But you play Super Nintendo games even, Super Mario World and stuff like that, play just fine on it. You'd be surprised what that little board can do. Thanks for watching.